Hey everybody, welcome back to my channel, Fish Den 365, and today I've got a good one for you, something for you to consider, a way of fishing that will definitely increase your catch rate, and it might just take you to a new level. So if I was to hold this bait up to 100 bass fishermen, 99 of them would know what it is, maybe even all 100. This is a Yamamoto Senko, a 4-inch Senko. And there's a lot of ways that this could be used to catch a bass. One way is to simply Texas rig it. So that it's straight on the hook like this. And you might even want to bury the tip of the hook a little just into the plastic like that so that it's weedless. Another way to fish the Senko is with a different type of hook. This is a wacky rig hook, and if you were to wacky rig a Senko, you would hook it in the middle of the bait, like so. So these are probably the two most common ways to fish a Senko, which is a wacky rig, and if you want to save on baits, you can use a little O-ring to wrap around the Senko and then put the hook through the O-ring. That way it won't tear the bait. And then the other way, a lot of times what I see is a weightless Texas rig, what we showed you the first time. Now there's another way that a lot of people use to catch fish on a Senko, and that is to go back to the Texas rig, but also to have a bullet weight on the front. Could be a 1/4 ounce, 1/8 ounce, 3/8 ounce, 1/2 ounce, 3/4. Could be all these different weights. What that weight does is it changes the rate of fall, and oftentimes that's what is important to know. More often, that's more important than the color of the bait, is the rate of fall when you're fishing a soft plastic bait like a Senko. So sometimes you have to experiment. Sometimes they want a slow rate of fall, sometimes they want a fast rate. And so you can experiment with different weights like that. And it's a very practical way of catching fish. I had a conversation with a buddy of mine, Kevin Gergel, I don't know, about a month ago, and he was saying that, you know, it's basically when he's throwing a Texas rig, it's all he throws. It's just this Senko. You know, it might be a 5-inch or 4-inch. There's different variations, but you know, it was hard to argue with his logic, and that was that the bait, when you Texas rig it and put a bullet weight on it, it goes through cover real well because there's no appendages that hang up. There's different colors that you can choose from, but the fish are just seeing this bait going right in front of their face. Oftentimes that's a reaction strike. And it does catch fish. I mean, if you fish that way, you know this thing is extremely effective. And it catches a whole lot of fish that way. And, you know, I couldn't really give a really good argument as to why not to fish a Senko instead of another bait that way. Now, sometimes I might like to fish a creature bait. But again, you know, from a practical point of view, it's hard to beat this bait. But today I want to show you something a little bit different, and that is, this is the Z-Man Ned Big TRD. It's called a Z-Man Big TRD. It looks very similar to the Yamamoto Senko. This is the same 4-inch. Both are black. This bait has rings on it like the Senko, and it also has some lumps on the back end of it. But there's a big difference. This bait does this. It's made with this Elastec material. If I did that to the Senko, I'd tear it in half. Before I go any further, you should know this: you cannot put these two baits together in a tackle box or in a bag. If you do, the plastics in them interact and you'll have just a glob of mess. So you have to keep the Elastec baits separate from the other soft plastics. It's a bit of a pain, but you may want to consider having these Elastecs after I describe to you what I'm going to describe. So I like fishing the Senko. I have tons of Senkos. It works. I'm not, you know, it's not my favorite way of fishing, but I recognize how incredibly effective the bait is. You have to have it. This bait, I think, is just as good. It allows me to do some different things. And one of the reasons I like this bait sometimes, for the application I'm going to show you, I like it way better than the Senko, and that's because this material floats. So what does that do? Well, when this hits the bottom, it doesn't land and do this. The Senko will. unless you have a special rig to stop that from happening. So when this bait hits the bottom, it basically stays tail up like this. And sometimes, depending on your content of the bottom, that can make a big difference. But I want to show you a rig right now about how I rig this bait that gives me a different kind of action than just the standard Texas rig. So, and I'm still going to use a Texas rig. I'm going to rig it, Texas rig, with a hook. Let me show you how this works. And I'm actually putting the hook in the back end of this big TRD, the lumpy end, the end that has the lumps on it. And I'll show you why in just a few seconds here. So let me finish hooking this guy up. So here's my rig, and then you might notice this weight on the bottom. What is that? Well, these are VMC Half Moon Wacky weights. They're used on Nico rigs, which is oftentimes you would fish a Nico rig wacky style with a weight on one end. It's got a little screw. It's a little lead weight. Sometimes you can get them in tungsten now, I hear too. You just screw it into the bait. And that's what's on the bottom of this particular TRD. Hopefully you can see that weight on the bottom there. Here, I'll put it towards you so you can see it. So you tie your bait, your line to your hook, but the weight is here. So that gives the bait a very different kind of look in the water. And so you control the rate of fall by choosing different weights of this VMC Half Moon Wacky weight. I keep mine in these little vials so I have them always ready to go. I'm just going to put these two away so I don't lose them. And then we'll show you what's special about this bait. I've been experimenting with this. Now, I haven't done a video on this bait, but I've been fishing it off camera. And every time I've fished it, I've caught fish on it. I will probably do a video on this coming up this late spring when the water warms up and this bait really becomes a good bait again. This color is on this particular one is peanut butter and jelly. I find that peanut butter and jelly is good in colder water. Fall, spring and fall is when I really like that color. I like other colors in the summer. So the interesting thing about this bait is you tie your line to the hook, but the weight is here. So when you pitch or flip this thing out and let it falls away from you. It doesn't fall straight down this way towards you. It actually falls this way. You know, if my rod's here, it'll fall away, and then you can move it forward, and then it'll fall back away. So it almost looks like that's how a crayfish would move through the water. You know, where it would come up and then fall back away. And that action is quite a bit different than just a standard Texas rig where the weight is on the front of the bait. So it looks different to the fish. They haven't seen this nearly as much, and they do eat it. I mean, it works well. Another nice thing that you can do is if you're a dock fisherman or if you're pitching or flipping docks, this thing is really nice because you can pitch it, let the line out, and that bait will fall and go under the dock even further. So you might want to throw it at the edge of a dock and then have it go in, or you can pitch it further back. Either way, it's going back under that dock in the direction where the bait normally wouldn't go when it falls. It would normally go the other way. A different look again to the fish. So I can't call this a Nico rig because I don't have it rigged wacky style, but I'm using a Nico style weight, putting the hook in the front of the bait and just pitching it around this way, and I can control the rate of the fall by what weight I choose. You just screw it into the bait. Once it's in there good. And this is a great bait for your consideration in the coming year. I hope you liked the video. If you did, give me a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. And if you'd like to see a cool video about a tournament among friends that I did recently, take a look at this one right here. Until next time, be safe out there. Hope to see you on the water. And as always, may God bless your fishing endeavors.